Your makeup is not the problem, it's how you're using it. Because the truth is, you do not need a million different products for your makeup to look good. You can do so much more than you think with just one concealer and one foundation formula. And for demonstration purposes, I will be using the sponsor of today's video, which is TIRTIR. Y'all know that I love TIRTIR. They recently launched their new Mask Fit Red Cushion Liquid Foundation. This is basically an extension of the Red Cushion foundation. So if you like this, you'll probably like this. But if you found this too heavy, I think you're going to also like this better, because this liquid foundation is meant to be a little bit more lightweight than the Red Cushion foundation. I would recommend this if you have combo oily skin. I think you'll like it if you have drier skin, but you will need to prep really well. The finish on this is still like a soft, natural, radiant finish. It's not necessarily glowy or overly dewy, but you do get a little bit of a sheen to the skin without it being super matte. And because it's a lot more lightweight, but it also gives you full coverage, it evens my skin tone without making me look cakey, which I really like. This also comes in 30 different shades that you can match closely to your cushion foundation. For me, I would say my perfect match, or the closest match to me, is 30N Rich Honey. And for my cushion, the closest match for me is 31N French Beige. I would say that the cushion and the liquid, at least based on what works for me, are fairly close to each other based on number. So I would pick the liquid foundation that is very, very close to the cushion. TIRTIR also claims, of course, that this foundation is supposed to be a long-lasting 72-hour wear while also feeling comfortable on the skin without fading or caking up. Of course, we're gonna put this to the test, so if you want to find out how this looks at the end of the day, then watch until the end of the video. Now, you're also probably wondering which one is better, the cushion or the liquid foundation. Honestly, I think they are very, very similar, and either one would work depending on your preferences, your lifestyle, and your use case. I like them both in their own way. I would describe the liquid foundation as more of an extension of the cushion. They're actually very similar in the way that they set on the skin, but I do think that the liquid foundation is more lightweight. And again, because it's liquid, it's a little bit easier to work with. You're not boxed into having to use that cushion format. So if you want more controlled coverage that feels weightless and doesn't get cakey as easily, then I would recommend the liquid. But if you're someone who is on the go often and you need something that's easy to apply on, isn't messy, it's gonna give you full coverage, mask proof, transfer proof kind of situation, and is also leaning more matte because the liquid's more satin luminous, then that's when I would go for the red cushion instead. Hopefully that was enough information for you to understand the differences between the two. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comments below. But until then, let's talk about foundation and how to make the most out of your foundations. I don't know about you, but most of the foundations that I tend to buy are fuller coverage and or medium coverage. And sometimes I want something that's a little bit more lightweight, especially when my skin is doing really well that day and I don't need as much coverage. The first thing you might want to do is go out and buy a skin tint or a tinted moisturizer, but what you can do instead is actually customize the coverage of your foundation. Now, this is a tip I think from Hailey Bieber. I don't know if she popularized it or made it a trend or something like that. I'm sure makeup artists have been doing this for quite a while. You can actually mix your foundation in with your favorite moisturizer or serum, and you will get that same effect as if you bought a tinted moisturizer. I actually tried it out the other day with the TIRTIR Ceramic Milk Impule. Just taking a drop of this and then as much foundation as you want to get a sheared out ratio. Just know the more of the serum you're going to put on, the less coverage you're going to get and the more glow you're going to get. I would recommend this trick for those of you who just want a very natural base makeup. If you hate heavy, cakey makeup, especially makeup that's too matte, and then just to give you a little bit more control, this is when you go in with a fuller coverage concealer and you can spot conceal blemishes while leaving the rest of your face to be glowy and dewy and fresh without feeling heavy or cakey. Now, on the opposite end of things, you might be someone who actually wants more coverage out of your foundation. Now, obviously, if you have a foundation that is fuller coverage, that's gonna do most of the work for you, no matter what tool or brush you use. So in this scenario, if you do have a medium to full coverage foundation and you want to get the most out of it, do not use a sponge applicator. These are not terrible at all, but there is a time and place for these. These are meant to give you more of that natural, thinned out, blended, soft focus foundation effect, which is amazing. However, because they are sponges, they do soak up a little bit more product. And when they soak up more product, they're going to give you less coverage, and that's going to require you to put in a little bit more work, a little bit more layers to get the full coverage out of your foundations. Instead, I would recommend to use a denser brush like any of these. So as you can tell, these are very packed, which means the foundation will usually sit more on top of the brush rather than soaking into the brush, so that you can get the most coverage out of your foundation. So of course, we're going to use the TIRTIR liquid foundation. I'm using the shade 30N to show you what it looks like on this side with the denser brush. You can kind of see how fast that applies and how much coverage I'm already getting because the product is sitting on top of the brush, which means when I apply it on my face, I'm getting the most out of it. And look at how fast that applied on the skin. But if you go with a sponge, let me just show you, especially because the sponge is bigger, as I'm patting it in, the sponge already soaked up so much product. And so I'm just gonna go like this. It does give me a lot more of a thin blend, which I really like, but I'm going to go in with the second layer because I still feel like my hyperpigmentation, my redness is still peeking through because it's not really giving me enough coverage or the coverage that I want. Again, neither look is wrong, neither look is bad. It just depends on the coverage you want. So I'm just gonna go back in with this brush and just finish up this side to give myself my coverage. And also, if you are using a brush to prevent from like streaks happening, definitely you want to kind of go in with pat motions as if you're using a sponge, because then you'll get less streaks. Wow. I do want to share a little bit about TIRTIR's new Glide and Hide concealer, because this to me was the star of the show. I was so excited when I received this in the mail because look at that. You have a stick side and you have a liquid side. So you have that, you know, lipstick looking side that's basically just like a cream concealer. This is going to give you more blur and supposed to help smooth out your texture. And on the other side is the concealer in a liquid form. So this is going to be more blendable on the skin, and it's also going to be easier to spot conceal with. The next problem that you might run into is buying a concealer that might be too light for your skin tone. The good news is that's kind of a look, that's kind of the trend, the technique that a lot of people do is buying a concealer that is lighter than their skin tone, because you can use it to not only brighten your under eyes but highlight the rest of your face without getting that glittery, shimmery highlight look. I have two really light shades here from TIRTIR. I think I'm gonna go with 4N because it's much lighter than 4.5N. So this is going to brighten the under eyes. Oh, you know what I'm gonna do? We're gonna use the stick side, kind of like create a line where my wing is to make it a lot sharper. Again, you just want to make sure you do one eye at a time, because once this concealer sets, it's not moving, y'all, okay? So we're doing my right eye first, and this is how the liquid blends fairly seamlessly. And you kind of see how bright it is under my eyes. Usually I would mix this in with a color corrector so that it gives more coverage for my dark circles, but I do just want to use the concealer alone so you can get a better idea of how it looks. And there you have it, a brighter under eye. This is what it looks without the concealer. This is what it looks like with the concealer. It just makes you look a little bit more alive, a little bit more awake. So the next scenario is if you bought a concealer that might be too dark for your skin tone, and or a foundation that's too dark for your skin tone. This right here is the shade 8.7N from TIRTIR. It's what I'm going to use as a kind of bronzer situation. Another example of doing this is taking a slightly darker foundation. This is 33N from TIRTIR. Because my forehead is darker than my neck and the rest of my face, if I have a darker foundation, I just kind of apply it on the perimeters of my face just to kind of shade my face, even if it's not drastic like a bronzer or contour or whatever. This is just gonna make your makeup look a lot more real. If you think about it, our skin, if we remove all of our makeup, isn't one-dimensional, isn't one color. I think we are so used to, you know, using a product for how it's marketed. So there's a lot of different categories of makeup like bronzer and blush, etc. But if you like the formula of the concealer that you're using and you're having a hard time finding other bronzer formulas that you like, then why not just buy the concealer that you like in a darker shade? Because that will also ensure that the formulas that you're using all work well together. And the best part about this is the stick side. So I'm going to show you how kind of use it as bronzer. Again, I feel like it sets pretty quickly, so I'm just going to do one side at a time. And this is going to just give me color, but also it has a soft matte finish, so it's going to like blur a little bit because I have a lot of texture here. Look at how easy that looks, so freaking good. And I don't usually contour my nose, okay? I do like a very messy contour on my nose because I don't like to change the shape of my nose, but I need it to have some sort of dimension, so I just kind of like put bronzer there. This is the side without bronzer. And this is the side with bronzer. Now we can do a little bit of reverse contour. So I'm taking the lighter concealer shade from TIRTIR and I'm just going to clean up the bottom there just to give it a sharper edge. You could also use this as highlight, so applying some here. Again, the stick side has that blurring effect, so I already applied some and it kind of like blurred my pores just very slightly. Again, we're trying to be realistic here, but I do see a difference. And then sometimes people highlight in this area. I don't like to go crazy with it, but just for demonstration purposes. Just gonna blend it out. Whoa, it does make a difference. Like, this is a little bit more blurred than this side of my face. Alright, so far we use this concealer as a under eye concealer, as a bronzer, as a reverse contour / highlight. Again, all of these tips, you don't just have to use it with the concealer. You can do the same thing with multiple different shades of foundation if you have that at home. You could also use the cushion as a bronzer, as a highlight, as a concealer because it's so full coverage. This is proof not to limit the job of the product to what it's marketed as because it can do multiple different things. Now we're going to move on to a liquid blush. Now I love a good liquid blush, but the problem sometimes with liquid blushes, you've probably experienced this, that it's just too freaking pigmented, which makes it a little bit more difficult to blend, and you really have to like put in work for it to blend seamlessly onto the skin. So this is what it looks like when I'm just applying it, and it gets kind of messy. What you can do instead is take the liquid product, put it on the back of your hand. Now again, it's your choice whether you want to mix it with your foundation or mix it with your concealer or mix it with your cushion. Either one works. I'm going to mix it with my foundation because that's the color that matches me best. Putting a little bit of foundation into that blush, and we're just going to blend it together, and I'm going to pat it onto my cheeks. Just look at how much easier that blends onto the skin. And it looks less harsh than this side. So to fix this side, I'm gonna go in with the TIRTIR cushion, which I think in this scenario works really well as just like a fixer-upper. Obviously, you don't want too much of this product on. I'm only doing really light taps. And then I'm gonna take off the excess on the lid. And we're just gonna top up the blush just to clean it up and soften the blend a little. I'll also do the same on this side to even out the placement. That looks a little bit better. I just kind of want some blush on my nose, maybe maybe a little on my chin. And then when in doubt, if you bought a concealer you just don't like and you can't figure out how to use it under your eyes or to cover your blemishes because it just doesn't perform well or work well, last resort is to use it as a cleanup concealer. So cleanup concealers are great because they can just make your makeup look a lot cooler, or not cooler, what am I saying? Crisper. So I'm gonna take this like flat shader brush, the stick side, and just use this to clean up my eye makeup. You can also use it to clean up your eyebrows. So if you want like a crisper eyebrow, I don't really care for a clean eyebrow because it's covered by my bangs, just for demonstration purposes. You can also use it to kind of highlight and trace out your lips, like so. Just reapplying it here just to re-highlight the center of my face because I think the blush kind of migrated in that area. So here's what the face is looking like right now. We're not done yet. I have one other tip. I'm gonna finish the rest of my makeup and I'll be right back. The last tip that I have is if you're looking for a nude lipstick but you don't have one right now. For me personally, I don't really want my look to be paired with a nude lipstick right now, so I'm just gonna brighten the inner parts of my lips, but you can do this trick to make your own nude lipstick. So take a concealer that's either the color of your skin tone or slightly lighter. I do think the color of your skin tone is better, so I'm gonna use the shade 6 Olive. It's just so perfect, the fact that this is in the shape of a lipstick form. So I'm gonna apply it on the center of my lips and blend. And that's just gonna brighten up my lips, making them look a little bit more plush, a little bit more plump. I do want to touch up the liner a little bit, so I'm just gonna apply some here. So this is my little lipstick trick. I use it for everything. A lot of the times when y'all are asking me what's on your lips, I've mixed my own concoction of lip products. It's usually like a lip liner, a lipstick, sometimes mixed with concealer, and then a lip gloss on top sometimes, and then sometimes a little bit of this and a little bit of that because I'm trying to like customize my shade. I'm always mixing lip color, so highly recommend for you to try it at home, especially if you don't have the right lipstick color for you, because sometimes, you know, when you're trying to match your lipstick with your makeup, you don't always have the perfect color, and that's totally fine because you can customize it. As always, I'm gonna show you what this makeup looks like in different lighting. For the first time, like my makeup, in my opinion, I feel like looks flawless in most lighting, obviously not overhead lighting, but it looks so freaking good right now. I cannot get over the way that it looks. I'm back 6 hours later. This is what the foundation and concealer is looking like at the end of the day. I do look like a hot mess because I ate, I'm tired, I'm ready to take all of this makeup off. We went to the grocery store for a little bit. I did some editing, and my skin, honestly, if anything, it looks better than when it started, which is kind of crazy to say because my natural oils and glow is shining through the foundation, which makes it look even prettier on my skin. Now, as always, I do have, you know, oils peeking through in my T-zone area. That is kind of where I would touch up and blot if I needed the product to look as nice longer. But at the 6 hour mark, I am so satisfied with how this looks. I don't find it caking up or breaking apart in areas that it usually would, because usually it'll break up like in the nose area or it'll break up on the chin area, but I am not seeing that. Now, the last tip before I wash all of this makeup off is actually from the TIRTIR team. I didn't think of this myself. This is something that they shared with me, and I thought it was, I'm not gonna say genius, but I thought it was a great idea because I didn't think of it. So they suggested to use the cushion as a touch-up product. Now, with this foundation, I don't think it's necessary to use a cushion as the touch-up product, and even with the cushion alone, I really don't think you need to be touching it up because these are both very long-lasting products as you can tell, and it looks really beautiful at the end of the day. But let's say you wear a skin tint in the beginning of the day, or the foundation that you have doesn't last as long, or you want more coverage at the end of the day. Keep the cushion in your bag and use it as a touch-up. This cushion is full coverage, but it's also very flexible. You just have to kind of know how to work with it. So take the applicator and just lightly dab your hand into it. Don't press too hard. A little goes a long way, and then pat it on the back just to get the excess off of that. Ooh, okay. I think that's already too much. We gotta dab some off there. You can kind of see where I'm applying it. Also, keep in mind, I have powder underneath this, and it's applying on top of the powder fairly well. Okay, interesting. I don't think it's mattifying the skin like I wanted it to, but it definitely is refreshing my makeup, and the fact that I can apply it on top of powder is also very nice. Definitely need to go in and touch up my blush because it's not really even here. But as for the reapplication, I do think it looks fresh. I can't believe it didn't do anything crazy with the powder. Not too shabby. So yeah, there's a chance that your makeup might not be the issue. You just need to get creative and think a little bit outside of how a product is marketed. And if you already have a foundation, a concealer, and maybe even a cushion, then you already have everything that you need to create the most flawless base routine. Just look at my face. I think the products speak for themselves. So thank you so much TIRTIR for sponsoring this video and sending over these products to use. I highly recommend them, especially if you have oily combo skin. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and as always, I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye!